All right, welcome everyone. My name is Sir Eva von Danzig. I'm from the Kingdom of Lochac. I'd like to welcome everyone to this panel discussion, Thorn to be Wild, Roses Tell Their Stories. The intent of the discussion today is that we have representatives from the Tri-Kingdoms, from the Order of the Rose, and we're going to have a discussion about our role as royal peers, our experiences as royals, and share wisdom and philosophy of the SCA. It will be a panel discussion. We do have some questions to start off with, but what I will ask is if everyone who is not a panelist would just mute themselves, and we can have a shout out if people have questions towards the end. But if you do have questions as we go, if you could pop those in the chat, my TA Alessandra will be assisting us today. But with no further ado, I'd love to introduce the rest of our panelists. I'll get y'all to introduce yourself a bit more thoroughly, but today with me from Lochac, I have Countess Lilia Bintazir. From the Kingdom of Atlantia, we have Countess Jane Alexandria Fitzpatrick. And from the Kingdom of Drachenwald, we have Duchessa Isabella del Verde. Welcome. Two of these companions I haven't met previously, so it's very good to meet you both. And if you would, maybe starting with Lilia, if you'd like to give yourself just a bit of a brief introduction.
Okay. I am Countess Lilia Bintazir. I've reigned once in Lochac, and I worked it out this morning, which is terrifying, 16 years ago, in 2010. With my husband, who passed in 2017. We reigned in the first half of the year in Lochac because we have 2 reigns a year, not 3 like in other kingdoms. So,
Excellent. Welcome. Countess Jane from Atlantia. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Yes, I am Countess Jane. My husband and I and children have been in the SCA for 25 years. My husband and I reigned. We were the coming out of the pandemic reign where we had a much longer reign. We have the second longest reign in Atlantia. So we reigned for 9 months. Our predecessors were during the shutdown for 18 months. So we reigned in 2021 through 2022. And it was a very interesting time, that's for sure.
Wonderful. Welcome. And I would like to acknowledge that Isabetta is in Sweden and had to stay up very late or get up very early to join us today. Would you like to?
I got up very early.
Wonderful, excellent. Please, Your Grace, tell us a bit about yourself.
My name is Isabella del Verde. I am, as I said, live in Drachenwald. I live in the Principality of Nordmark, which is modern-day Sweden. And it is currently 4:35 in the morning here.
whoa.
Lovely, nice time to be up.
Thank you.
I have reigned as queen 3 times together with my partner. And our most recent reign was about 2 years ago. And I've also done 1 principality reign as well before our first kingdom reign.
Wonderful. For my part, my credentials, I suppose, as your host, I reigned twice in the Kingdom of Lochac with my partner, Duke Felix. And so, although I am not one of the panelists, I'm always here to field any questions as well. So, to get us kicked off, for our panelists as well, you don't have to answer every question, otherwise it will be much than an hour, but if you feel particularly taken with anything, please do jump in. So we're going to start off with, I think, a really important question, because I think as an order, sometimes we maybe aren't as well defined in what our duties and roles would be as, say, the other orders of peerage might be. So would you tell us, how would you describe your role as a member of the Order of the Rose? And what, if anything, do you see as your duties?
Do you want anybody to start? Yeah.
Do you want to start?
Sure, why not? I think it's a personal thing because it's not, we don't actually have, like the chivalry does, like a list of virtues that we are encouraged to portray. We're basically told we're inspirational and then let run amok after we step down to some degree. So I guess for me personally, I think it is to be an example of what a peer should be, to advise people on the broader picture, because you inevitably will end up being an agony aunt for somebody. But there's that level of not that the general populace don't see the workings of councils and purses of, like the treasury and how the kingdom runs. So just giving them an insight into how the bigger picture is actually functioning sometimes is one of our major roles, I think, and being a historian to some degree. So that's how I see it. Candace Jane?
So growing up, I was an adult when we joined, but through the years, when I became a rose, I told the order when they made me a rose, I was in tears. I was like, I have looked up to this group of women, men now too, but at the time I was like, I've looked up to this group of women for over 20 years, and to be a part of something for me is just like this was just so great. And Kapoor just lays out and says, we're supposed to be inspirational, but we're supposed to be inspirational for all aspects of the SCA, just not just on the field for our fighters, but in all aspects. And as queen, we had to, be part of all aspects, ANS, archery, thrown weapons, fighting. I mean, any aspect that we had, you need to be a part of. And when you step down, you've been there, you've been the person that's been there, and you shouldn't just go away. You represent an order now that you need, that people look up to you, and you should still do those things and still support all of the things. And for me, that's something that many of our roses are doing. I took on the great responsibility of being the rose secretary here in Atlantia, as Yasmin can tell you. And so we are trying to do many more things and to support the kingdom in many areas. So it's a work in progress, but we're doing it.
I think that support really is one of the key things for the Rose, is that we're a supporting and helping out, kind of an in behind the scenes. We don't need to be in the spotlight anymore, but we can help make things run in the background. But for me, one of the key parts of the Order of the Rose is to be a support for the current queen, or the current crown princess and queen, or heir consort, and helping guide those who are doing this for the first time, and just be there to be a sounding board or guide along the way.
Yeah. I feel like the members of the Order of the Rose, we are supposed to be inspirational, and part of that is we're supposed to be champions of courtesy. At least in our local ceremonies, courtesy is a big underpinning of the order. So I feel much the same as Lilia, that it is very personal, but I think that each of us is quite unique. We don't all service the same portions of the community, but I think that what's really beautiful is we have the opportunity to be inspirational and be the champions of courtesy and tradition within whatever facet that we choose to interact with. And I think that that's one of the benefit, is that we are kind of undefined in what our duties are, but each of us has influence within our chosen field. Alrighty, so This one's a nice light one. So, if you would please describe your greatest delight in being crowned and how it enriched your experience.
Anyone else want to go first, or
Jump on
Go
in.
ahead.
For it.
I think, and I think for me, the greatest delight was actually recognizing and rewarding people, like the opportunity to see what people are achieving was amazing. But I think that you have to be very careful about nepotism while you're sitting on the throne, because we've all seen that happen before. And I think that, as Countess Jane and mentioned earlier on, you're there for everybody. So even though you might have a personal grievance with somebody, you have to treat everybody the same way. And that has followed on from stepping down. I tend to put my personal opinions of people in the background, specifically because I want to encourage everybody to do the best that they can for the game. And it might not be my game, but it's important that everybody see that there's different ways of doing our version of history. So
I have to agree. That was one of the best things, to be able to see the populace, recognize the populace, and get to know people. People that you go to the ANS hall and you see people doing embroidery, and then later on they're still working on the same one a few months later because it's a giant piece of embroidery. So each time you go up and you're like, how's it going, but to be able to see people's joy in their faces when they receive an award or recognition, or even if it's just receiving a token, not necessarily an award, but just a token, just to see their faces and the joy on their faces, and to know, you know what, we are doing what we're supposed to do, and we're in the right place.
Definitely agree. I think one of the other things that is the expanding of your social network and all the new friends you meet, and being able to travel and visit events or local groups that wouldn't necessarily be the top of my list to go to otherwise, and then getting to know more people there as well.
Absolutely. All right. I want to get practical because we don't always have these kinds of conversations, noting that there's a certain amount of chance to whether or not you would become part of the Order of the Rose. And I think it's always good for people to start thinking practically early on if it is something that they aspire to doing. So what piece of advice would you give to someone who's aspiring to reign in future? Who wants to go first? Yeah, Lilia, go for it.
I think we've got a number sequence now that we're following.
Let's just go with that.
Yeah. I think my main piece of advice would be, it's not all about you. It's about the kingdom and the populace. And although you may enter a crown tournament with the goal to reign, you have to realize that it's not a two-people show. You need a support network behind you that is actually your safety net for when you have to deal with yucky things that come up during reigns. On a more materialistic side of things, I think you have to realize that what you want in your reign has to be a little bit more grounded than the fantasy of, I'm going to look like Queen Elizabeth with all the ruffs and the silver, like the beads and the pearls, because it's impractical to travel like that. So you need to maybe have a better understanding of what your reign should look like and be flexible that it may not be perfect, but it will be perfect for somebody watching you or being there. So.
Yeah, Jane, how about you?
I would say, someone asked me this question a few months back, and they were like, what's one thing you would tell me? I said, make sure you have a good support group. not just people that are close to you, but people that you can trust to talk to keep confidence, people that you can trust to actually be there for you and to do the job that you need them to do, because not everybody that's close to you is going to be able to participate and do the job that you need them to do. So a really good support group network. And then for your staff, it's good to use new people, but it's also good to use people that have done this before, that know how to kind of guide you a little bit on the way. Not everybody's going to be, seasoned. So we were
Especially if it's
lucky.
your first drain.
Exactly. Exactly. We were very lucky to have some former kings and queens that really helped us along the way. And I cannot speak highly enough for our court secretary that we had. She's family now. She walked out with us when we walked out for our decoronation. I mean, there are some people that are just family afterwards. And yeah.
Is it better?
I think, there's many things I would recommend. The very practical is, start thinking about what is this going to involve in terms of commitment if you do go and win. How much time is it going to take? Both the time in traveling and attending events, but especially all the time between those events, preparing and coordinating and planning. And I think that's difficult for someone who hasn't done it to understand. I mean, you can never know until you're sitting there, but or possibly when you step down, that's when you finally figure it out. And your calendar all of a sudden is so much more empty. But understanding that it's a big commitment that is going to take time. It's going to take finances. Getting to the events that you want to go to, vacation days if you need travel days to get to and from events, and just understanding that you're stepping into that. But I think also talking to the person you're entering crown tourney with, and having a plan of some sort if you want to have a plan. But knowing, are you guys on the same line, and what do you want to do? Do you want to have a themed reign? Are there any special events or things that you want to do or start? Are there traditions that you want to change or implement in the kingdom? Or are there particular awards that do you have a list of, these are people we'd like to elevate to these peerages, sitting in the back of your head, just waiting for that day you win crown tourney? Things like that are good to start thinking, because once you do win, everything kind of rolls on quickly. Yes. So the more you've given it a bit of a thought beforehand, the easier it is.
Yes, so true. A piece of advice that I was given is that remember that as crown, you're the first servants of the kingdom. So as much as there is glory and beautiful moments, there's also a lot of responsibility, and it's important to know what that is before you get there, because it will make the road easier once you're there. More practical advice. What advice would you give to consorts to support their champion? Now, I know that can sound loaded, but again, if you are aspiring to reign, two people always reign together. And so there is a certain amount of, each of us has been there with our champions, sitting at the side of the field or waiting for a phone call. And there's a lot of work that goes into that process. So what advice would you give to support for consorts to support their champions? Lilia?
So my consort won the first time he entered a crown tournament for me. So
I was a big success pattern.
Yeah. So I had zip idea, because I was just kind of like, okay, he wants to enter a crown tournament. I'm here to support him. And then as he progressed, I kind of went, oh shit, this is a possibility. But I think one of the advices, I'm going to start with advice from other consorts. Sitting in a crowd of people and having somebody yell about killing your partner or your fighter is really distasteful, right? And that was my first experience in a crown tournament, was somebody yelling about killing that person who was my consort. So I have a tendency to be very aware of who's standing around me now and trying to keep my nervous tension in and not spoil anybody else's tournament, basically. I have consorted a couple of people since Brian passed away. And I will honestly say I don't know if I'm the best consort, because I've learnt that I have to sit still, which is really bad because I have ADHD and I will butterfly. So I have learnt that you have to go, this corner is where I'm going to stand when you do your salutes. So like, I will be here when it's your turn, definitely. But I think I've started witnessing other consorts, and I realized that what you're supposed to do is actually keep them grounded, because it's such a busy, intense tournament that keeping their head in the game is obviously one of the things that you're there. So you're there as an emotional support, to ensure that they're rehydrated, that nobody comes up and interrupts their brain at the time that they're trying to focus, because I've seen it so many times where people kind of get distracted and they lose their fighting, like where they're at in their fighting in the tournament. So I think that you kind of have to be like a bouncer of sorts, where you go before your tournament, you go, who do you not want to talk to you during this tournament, so that I can go, look, they're really busy. Can you talk to them about this later on? Like, especially if they're clerks of an order, or they're got like people, they're parts of other councils. Somebody will come up in the middle of a crown tournament and go, hey, I was just wondering about, and it's like, no, this is focus time. So I think that's what you're supposed to do, and what I'm still trying to improve on as a consort. So
Excellent. Countess Jane.
So for my husband, he's the only one that's ever fought for me in crown tournaments. For us, I would say if you have a partner and you are together and you live in the same house, because a lot of people fight and they're friends, and for a partner, if you live in the same house, you have to know that they are going to be traveling. They are going to be traveling to fighter practices all over the place, and you have to let them do that. If you want to do this and you want them to get good or better, just better, that's something that they're going to do on the day of. It's very important, like Lilia said, to keep them hydrated. Make sure you've got whatever beverage, water, Gatorade, whatever beverage they prefer with them, possibly some type of umbrella or shade if it's sunny. I do go from each, the last crown tourney, there were 4 different sets, and so they were going to all over the place, and so we were running back and forth all over, back and forth. So I mean, for me, it was important to be there, because you can be there, and if you're in a relationship, you can love on them, rub their back a little bit, fan them, even if you're not in a relationship, though, it's like she said, it's good to keep them hydrated. It's good to give them the support that they need, to stay focused on that day, because it's an important day, and anybody is a prince and princess on any given day, so it could be anybody's day.
Your Grace, how about you?
On the practical side, I'd say making sure they go to bed the night before is one of my tasks. I'm usually not alone in that in the concert group. I'm trying to get our fighters to go to bed, and then make sure they actually wake up in the morning and whatever. What time do they want to get up, so that I can help make sure they actually gets out of bed. getting breakfast if he doesn't want to go down and get breakfast himself. But a lot of it's also, talk to them, ask them, what can I do to support you? What will make your day easier? What will help you focus on the fighting and take away your distractions? If that is being the bouncer or making sure that they have water or coming to talk them between fights or not coming to talk to them between fights, to not be the one who's being the distraction. So I think it depends on the fighter and their preferences, and sometimes from day to day, that some days one thing works, the next time you enter, half a year later, it could be something else. But one of the other things I find that, okay, maybe not for my champion, but helping to set the mood and the scene, having entered several crown tournaments, 3 of which we won, but many that we haven't won. I think one of the nice things is also, bringing together the group of consorts. We tend to, in Drachenwald, often tend to have seating for the consorts in place, which means that it also becomes a fun activity on the consort bench, and helping to bring, for those who are consorting for the first time, helping support them in this task and journey is also part of it. Sometimes some consorts have, prepared little gifts or presents, or, I baked cookies that were crown shaped one time, to pass out to the other consorts and just to help create the atmosphere around the tournament, I think is also a part of the task.
So lovely.
Especially for those that have done it for a while.
Consort gifts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
However, not consort gifts that it becomes a must and you have to.
Right.
For me, consort gifts need to be rare enough that, someone will show up with them, maybe, but not it becomes that everyone's brought something and has to pass it out and it becomes an extra task. Then it's no good.
Yeah.
I laughed at the whole getting your consort to bed thing because Bran had a big night on the White Russians the night before he won. And I was like, okay, so we're not going to win. You're not interested. Yay.
Sometimes that'll make you fight better because you don't want to get hit in the head.
I think so.
The first time we won, we had been at Great Western War and flew from California to London, took the train up to the site. We're obviously not on the same time zone by far. Therefore, did not go to bed very easily at all because, it was middle of the evening for us, not middle of the night.
Yep.
And got up the next morning and he won crown. So
amazing. One thing that I'll add is there is a lot of practicality. Again, like I said at the start, it is a team, you're a partnership. I think that it's hard to kind of define what is inspirational when it comes to, that'll be personal to each representative, each consort, and to each couple. But another practical piece of advice that I might give is also knowing that in the society, the currency that we play with is our reputation. So I would say be willing to watch the fights that your fighter has. And if they do want some feedback on a fight and you saw something that you went, you know what, it could have been better, you are there to give them that information because, as Lilia said, you want to be aware of the people around you because, you don't want to make other people uncomfortable. You want to be aware that what happens in that tournament will affect your social currency. And so that's very important to make sure that you're both happy with all of the fights. And if you feel like there was a question in any of the fights, you're also there to give your opinion on that, because if you win on the day, you reign together, and that affects you as a partnership. So watch the fights. I find watching tournaments enjoyable, but even if you're not the biggest fan, it's still worth watching the fights just to make sure that you're involved in that part of the process.
Yeah, you should never walk off a tournament field without your good reputation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. I might divert from our pre-prepared questions and ask Alessandra, are there any questions that have come in?
There are. excuse me. So I have for you, first of all, Beatrice was saying that the best of her knowledge, the West is the only one that has 3 rains per year. The other 19 do too. Another question, which is a very interesting one. What time commitment raining in terms of behind the scenes stuff? Are you able to take a week off, or do you need to be plugged into Crown on a daily basis? And this was asked by Alok de la Bro.
All right.
Oh, I'll jump in there.
Yeah.
That definitely not, you can do it in a week and then say I'm done. It's from Monday after you win, you get a day off on the traveling home from the event, but Monday after you win until you step down, it's at least 4 or 5 days a week that you're going to be plugged into your rain. It's a lot of online time, especially if you're not living. I mean, I've had the advantage of living in the same house as my partner, which means that you can do it during your whatever daily activities and together and talk over the dinner table. But if you're not living together, then it's even more so. You need to set that time and have a schedule of when are we going to talk and plan. But for each event that you go to during your reign, you're going to be holding court. And for each court that you attend, you need to, or that you're holding, you need to plan that it's many hours of preparation starting a couple of months before the event. You need to make sure that you have the list of who's coming to the event. You need to go through all the award recommendations and compare that to who's coming to the event. Okay, what awards are we going to give out? And make it, set that list, and that usually gets bounced back and forth. It's not a just one go. Often it gets bounced back and forth. The later in your reign, the more you know what the award recommendation list is, what's on there, so then it goes faster. And once you've set that list, you need to get that off so that the scribes can do their part in making their magic happen. But then you need to actually plan, what order are you going to do things? Are you, and depending on what kind of what type of personalities you are in court planning. Do you, like, I come to an event with, I haven't always got a plan for who's going to be herald for my court, which means I got to sort that on site. But since I do it that way very often, that means I instead show up to the event with a ready script to go, so that if I recruit a herald on site, you can feel free to read this. You don't have to read it word by word. You can change what you think needs to be changed, but if you just want to, get up there and start reading, then basically it's all there. Or are you more about, we have this list, it's this long, it has the names and what awards there, and there's online you can find the Book of Ceremonies. And that's how you recruit your heralds. Well, then you need to give them a little more preparation time. But that planning, and then all the communication back and forth, and that's where, how many people do you have supporting you in your little royal household, sharing the tasks of practicals like travel planning and contact with event staff to see who's, what do we need to bring? Are there loaner feast gear for us, or do we need to bring that? And what time are we arriving? Do we need to be picked up at the airport or at a train station? Things like that.
Yeah.
I think keeping in contact with the cooks as well at events is a really good idea, because your theater may extend over the period of the event, but they have a set time that they need to get warm food out and children fed and the pack down of a hall. So you need to be conscious of the fact that you're not taking from somebody else's service when you're just adding to the theater. So I think, definitely having somebody, a communicator or a royal liaison at an event is a good idea, so that you can go, okay, what is set in stone, and we will work around it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It's another full-time job that you don't get paid money for. So Yeah.
Yes. All right. Alessandra, what's next?
We have quite a few questions. The next one is from Serafina. How does the order of the rows differ in kingdoms where the order is polling versus a non-polling order?
That's a good question. I know in Lochac we don't poll. What about Atlantia or Drachenwald?
No, you're automatically a rose when you step down your first time.
Mhm.
And we do a rose ceremony. Stuff like that. Are there ones with that it's polled?
We
don't think-
pull, but not for Order of the Rose. We pull for the patent of arms that usually comes together with the county, not the duchy, because by then you usually have the patent. But we pull for the patent of arms, but the Order of the Rose isn't pulled for.
I can see someone saying, I heard the East polls. Unfortunately, I'm not from there. If we're not from there, I'm not sure that we can comment on the experience and how it differs. I'm sorry. All right. What's next, Alessandra?
Beatrice has a comment that North Shield has a tradition of consort gift exchange. And that's interesting. And Countess Yasmin has a comment. She says, Duchess Isabetta, you have a magical crown.
One.
It is quite magical.
It comes and goes too. It's
sparkles.
a headband and a crown. But it's very pretty.
It sparkles. And then the next question is, or a comment. Kamara says, there are some in the SCA who take their game very seriously. What process/plan do you put in place to not get caught up in the, in quotations, seriousness of others? Essentially, how do you ensure that you didn't take yourself or your position as crown too seriously?
I'll go. I had two instances when we were crowned where I had the crown on my head and I was just having a conversation with somebody and they just kind of looked at me and they looked at my head. They were like, "Are you the queen?" I'm like, "Yes, hi, I'm Jane." Not I am Her Majesty Jane. Hi, I'm Jane, you know? Wow. You're a really nice queen. I'm like, "Oh, thank you." But you know, I am the same person when the hat comes off as when the hat's on. This is a game. We get to dress up and be pretty. Some of us have little shiny things, you know, but it's very important to be kind to everybody and accepting of everybody because, I mean, what kind of world we live in if we're not?
I was lucky enough that during the evolution of our kingdom, that I was one of the, as we like to say, a cusp reign. So we had an awful lot of people who had old traditions that are important to them emotionally, and a whole group of new people who were encouraging in the development of the kingdom. So I think for us, there's a time and a place to be serious and not serious. If you're doing something that a person is only ever going to experience once in their SCA like life, then that is a serious occasion, and it is important to give it the gratis that it deserves. People having a food fight when we were king and queen at an event was all well and good until I got hit in the head with a piece of food as queen. And at that point, Bran was a very quiet man normally would just stood up and went, "Okay, that's it. Everybody, we're about to clean the hall, so nobody else has to deal with this mess." And there's a moment where you go, everybody still was having fun, but it was okay. Now I'm the parent, and we're doing the right thing. So I think that doing little bits of theater in court, you need to explain it to everybody so that everybody can be part of that theater. So like somebody giving you a unicorn that poops glitter when you're on the throne, right, is all well and good, but you need to explain it to the people who don't understand that it's a gag that you said something silly that you wanted one when you were a princess, you know, and that's somebody doing something fun for you during your reign. So I think it's important to explain to everybody that you're not the regent of history, you're a regent of the SCA. So.
Isabella,
I think also sharing that you are a regular person, and yes, within the SCA I have this role right now, but when I'm rolling up to the event in my mundane clothing and it's time to set up tents, I'm going to be carrying things and putting up tents, and not playing. I'll still come. I'll still answer the questions that people throw at me and practical stuff, but I'm not portraying that role right now, and showing that you're a regular person.
a very good point. It's hard as well because there is a balance to it. As Crown, you do deal with serious things that you actually shield the kingdom from. Again, you're the first servants of the kingdom. You're there to service and to nurture the people in it. And sometimes that means that you have to do things that you would rather not do. But I think humility is usually the best policy as well. So it's you don't have to be serious all of the time. And at least in my experience, I've seen lots and lots of reigns where, people are having a bit of fun because we're here to have fun at the end of the day. So yeah, don't take yourself too seriously. But yeah, we would be fibbing if we didn't say that there are serious things that you have to do as well. All right, I'm going to go back to my list for a moment because I like this one. So for each of you, did being crown affect the way that you played in the society after you stepped down? And if so, how?
I don't know if it did. I personally haven't seen a change. I think I'm better at speaking aloud. I was a bit of a mouse beforehand. I'm more likely to call somebody on their bad behavior now than I would have previously because I know how it affects others. But I think Lilia is still the same person. I just have more experience. So that in itself has made me evolve.
I have to say I am changed. I'm much more an extrovert now than I was before. Even though I knew people and participated in many different things, it is different now. Now I'm like, I feel like I'm running more now than I did when I was queen. We're all over the place, because you got to go see all the things and do all the things. And I certainly do talk a lot more than I did before. I still get nervous though sometimes, which is weird, I guess. But the weirdest thing I get nervous about is if we go to feast and we have a tradition where the highest 3 or 4 ranking peers have to give toasts during the feast. And I would much rather get up and give a dissertation than give a toast. And it's only one sentence. I don't know why, but it freaks me out. I don't know why.
So formal.
Yeah, maybe so.
I think absolutely it changes. During a reign, you get an insight into a lot of the inner workings of the SCA and of your kingdom, that knowledge isn't, you can't just forget that when you step down, for good and bad. A lot good, and understanding, and as someone said earlier, that part of the role of the rose is to then help others learn the same things and share that knowledge. But you also have to deal with a lot of the not so fun stuff. And, when there's problems, and usually it's a problem, the problems are usually two people or two groups of people not getting along. And you have to go in and somehow help be the parent and get them to at least functionally get along. But you see those kind of behind the scene things, and that takes away a bit of the fuzzy haze of the dream. And you can't, once you've seen that, you can't step back into the dream of it just magically happens, because now what happens behind the scene to make that magic. So I think that changes, but I think also it depends a lot on how you were playing before your reign. If I didn't feel it was a big step or change personally, but that was because I was playing on such an active level and held office on regional levels, and was involved in a lot of inner working parts of the kingdom. And I hung out with a lot of people who were peers or who were royal peers, which means that I had along the way seen and learned these things as we went. Whereas I know some others feel that it's a much bigger step because they've kind of entered a whole new circle of happenings, and that becomes a much bigger step. I mean, just are you a peer before your reign or not becomes. Have you ever been to one of the peerage meetings? Do you know how they work? Well, you do after your reign. Then you've been to them all. So things like that changes how I perceive what's going on around me.
Excuse me, we've got a 10-minute warning, and you still have a lot of questions. So how would you like to proceed?
Well, ladies, do we want to do a speed round where we go through these questions and then maybe pop your hand up if you want to respond?
Sounds like a plan.
All right. Alessandra, what do we have next?
Okay, so Dame Sophie says, fighters and consorts often become very powerful leaders of a non-profit group based on volunteer labor. But when they become king and queen, they often have no leadership training. Is there any leadership training you would recommend for the role of king and queen?
Yes. I'd say if you're planning or hoping to reign at some point in the future, help in the current reigns. Help be part of that royal household. Step up at your local event and say, I can be royal liaison and be that sounding board and contact person for the royalty. Help retain. Okay, well, go to that meeting before court to learn which tokens need to be given out when during the reign, and then stand there in the back and see what's going on. Hear the whispers behind the thrones and realize that there's a lot of whispering going on back there that people out there just don't realize. Help out in those ways, because that will totally help you the day you do win.
All right. Next question.
Okay, so I've seen there's comments about the East polling and that, so I got those as questions, but they're not. They're statements. It's Beatrice said that I believe the East polls for the Rose, but there are other places that poll for the Payton. And then I guess Count Yasmin asked cusp reign, as in generational, or SCA cultural transitions?
A cusp brain is a terminology that a group of us use basically where something major changes in the SCA and you're the face of the change, basically. So we've had a couple of Lochac. The most recent, for instance, is the introduction of the peerage for the mark. So there's that level of there's going to be people who are uncomfortable with it, but you need to explain why decisions were made for everybody, not just one group. So it's not beneficial for one group, it's beneficial for the kingdom. So us brain is kind of like introduction to change.
Sorry, is anyone else having sound quality issues?
It just started halfway
Yes.
through.
I'm glad it's
But
not.
I'm not. It's Lily. I'm
It
having trouble
stopped.
hearing
Yes.
otherwise when everyone else is.
Agreed.
Now
yeah,
it stopped.
agreed.
It just
It had-
stopped.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
It
No, there it
started
goes
back.
again.
All right, Lilia, would you try muting? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's your headset.
Something happened with Lilia's mic, I think.
No.
Oh,
Uh,
thank you for your answer. And Jane, can you confirm, was I a cuss brain too? And one first time, it seemed like it was a lot of change, but you were several brains ahead of me. But yes, thank you. That was an interesting term, and it didn't translate.
all right, Alessandra, what do we have next?
Okay. This is a comment. Jenna from the East says, there is an email list for a rose as a polling. I know many, many years ago, a lady was not brought into the Order of the Rose. This was corrected about 15 to 18 years ago.
Mhm. There you go. Are there more questions rather than comments?
No, I think that's about it. And we should be wrapping up. It's 11:25 my time. So
Do we want to field one last question? Do we have time for that?
yes, you do. Please.
Yep. All right. So what is something that you think everyone should know about being crowned but isn't well known? Lilia, you can have a go. See how your mic is going.
She's frozen on
Is she
my
frozen?
She's frozen. Jane, would you like to go first?
Sure. This may not be very popular. It's very political, I think. As Isabetta said, you see the stuff behind the scenes, such as you get to watch how the sausage is made. It's a
Yeah.
lot.
Mm.
It's a lot. There's the fun part, and then there's the all of the other stuff, so it's not always fun, but that's okay.
Isabetta, before you go, I've realized that the next class probably also wants to set up. So we'll get you to say your ultimate wisdom. And then Lily, are you happy to sign off?
I'd say that the crowns are people too. They're just, they have good days, they have bad days. There are people who sometimes are shy, even if you've sat and reigned or are currently wearing the kingdom crown. It's still people who can be, feel uncomfortable going into a group and just jumping into a conversation and joining. They can be needing that little extra invite, just like everyone else, that, be welcoming. Or they can have imposter syndrome, just like anyone else.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much to my panelists, Countess Lilia, Countess Jane, and Duchessa Isabetta. So good to meet the two of you, and so good to see you, Lilia. And thank you for joining us, everyone who's been here today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something. And if you didn't, I hope you just enjoyed it.
Thanks. This has been lots
Thanks,
of fun.
everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Oh, and thank you to Alessandra for being the TA.